Hello and welcome to Something Rhymes with Purple. Now, normally, Gyles, we are sitting in my sitting room or my kitchen. But there's a different acoustic here, isn't there?
Very different.
Because we are not in my kitchen.
No, we're not in Oxford. We're in London, England. I say that because we now have quite a few listeners in Canada, which is quite exciting. So it could be London, Ontario, who knows, not far from either Toronto or indeed even Vancouver Island. Because this is an international podcast. We are in London, Islington, and we're doing it live. We've got a real audience here of, what are we going to call the people who listen to our podcast?
We call them the Purple People. Is that all right with you?
Those are the Purple People. Yay! Oh, it's fantastic. We established that quite a few of you who's from London? Who's from out of London? You see? Who is from the world? Okay, so we've got a live audience here.
We have a live audience, and you will know, hopefully, if you've listened to us before, that this is a programme all about words, and it's our passion for words, because we are logophiles, aren't we?
Logophiles.
Logophiles.
Is that a Canadian word for people who move like lumberjacks? They move logs about. Are they logophiles? What is the origin of logophile?
Log lovers. They're logo lovers. They're word lovers, simply. Logophiles.
Well, logo is a word, is it?
Yes.
In Latin. File is enthusiastic. Okay.
So that is us. Do you remember the first moment you thought, wow, about English?
Yes, I think I do. I've been in love with the English language since I was a really little child. I had wonderful parents. I'm constantly asked to write a book about my childhood. I can't, because I couldn't publish a misery memoir, because I had a lovely childhood. I paraphrase a poem by Philip Larkin to describe my childhood. My poem goes like this: they tuck you up, your mum and dad. Because my parents just tucked me up in bed. They read me stories. They recited poems to me. My father was a lawyer. My mother was a teacher. They introduced me to my love of words from a very small age. I've loved words all my life. Now, how about you?
One is sitting in the back of a car, my parents' car, going to some freezing destination on the south coast. And my sister, who is very glamorous, would be playing around with new makeup, eyelash curlers, that kind of thing. I would be sitting there with a vocabulary book at the age of 7. And it was a French and German vocabulary book at this point. And my goal was to learn as many words as I could by the time we reached Worthing or wherever it was. I was a nerd even then, age 7. And even before that, I remember sitting in the bath looking at shampoo bottles and marvelling at what must have been the most boring ingredients in the world, and just thinking, I want to be able to understand these.
It's interesting that you mention the shampoo bottles, because even at my advanced years, I cannot stop anywhere. In the bathroom, perched on the loo, sitting on the edge of the bath, I can't do it without words. So I'm reading the side of the soap packet, the shampoo, the medicines.
Are you trying to find anagrams? Because that's my new thing.
Oh, really?
Yes. Well, I've been doing Countdown for so long, it would be hard not to find hidden words.
Oh, let's do a test with these people, okay? We'll do an anagram of an everyday English word is Monday, M-O-N-D-A-Y. All of you together now, you'll know this. Rearrange the letters in the word Monday, and what have you got? An everyday English word, M-O-N-D-A-Y. Rearrange those letters to come up with another everyday English word. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Dynamo. Well done, sir. Dynamo. That's magic. Congratulations.
Pretty good.
He called it out. What's your name? Where do you come from, sir? Nigel from Clapham, if I may say so. That's a come on if ever I heard one. Wow. When I was a member of Parliament, there were people who would go down to Clapham to meet a Nigel, I can tell you.
Especially a dynamo, Nigel.
So, you went to school, and were you good at English at school?
I did go to school. I was very much a geek before it became, cool to be a geek, before geek chic ever arrived, and a nerd.
Geek chic? I've not heard of that.
Geek chic, not geek chic. I do not embody it. But yeah, so for French and German, my first true loves, German particularly. German is honestly one of the most beautiful languages in the world. Gets a really bad time, but is just beautiful. Then I came to English quite late, and I came to English when I was working at Oxford University Press. I was working on their French and German dictionaries, and then one day I was having lunch in my office, al desco, and I pulled down a copy of a really old etymological dictionary called Skeat's Etymological Dictionary of the English Language. I started reading about swan song and how the origin of swan song, I may have mentioned on the podcast before, but it's quite beautiful. I need to find another adjective for beautiful. I think I've said it 5 times tonight.
No, if it's a good word, keep using it.
For centuries, people believed that swans are born mute, and they remain mute all their lives until the moment of their death, where they burst into mournful but beautiful elegiac song. And that is the idea of a swan song, your final great performance. And I was so captured by that I started to read more and more and more. And that was it. That was it for me.
Is it a myth, or is it true that swans...
No, they have a whole range of vocal sounds. And so there are so many myths about animals. Do you remember licking into shape? Lick something into shape, you think, oh, this is military boot camp type thing. But licking into shape was an ancient legend that persisted through Shakespeare's time and things, that bear cubs are born as blobs, as formless blobs, and they have to be licked into bear shape by their mums. Isn't that beautiful? That's where licking something into shape comes from. So all these stories all wrapped up in this book, and any really good dictionary of word origins nowadays will tell you these stories, and you'll get lost in it forever.
And it was from your time at the Oxford University Press you began working on the Oxford English Dictionary?
No. Well, that kind of came a little bit later. But with my second week at OUP, I was asked by my boss whether I wanted to go and work on this programme called Countdown, which I had seen before. I said no very firmly. I was quite happy doing what I was doing. And he came back 3 times. I said no 3 times, and then he came back and said, I think this would be really good for your job. So I had no choice. And then I famously went and hid behind Rula Lenska's hair, my first show. Evidence is still on YouTube, unfortunately. I was terrified. And I met you not long after, which was also terrifying, in your jumpers. Gyles's jumpers. Remember Gyles's jumpers? Yeah.
Oh.
You love your jumpers.
People can't see this. I'm looking touched. So that's when we first became friends. And I was on Countdown. In fact, over the years, I've been on Countdown, I think probably more than anybody else in Dictionary Corner, many hundreds of times. I was on Countdown because I was a friend of the actor and entertainer Kenneth Williams. And I'd met Kenneth Williams doing the radio program Just a Minute on Radio 4, and we'd become good friends. And he said, oh, you'll be ideal for Countdown. But I was already a word enthusiast. I was the founder of the National Scrabble Championships. I am the president of the British Association of Scrabble Players. Afterwards, I will be walking among you, so you may touch my garb. And I just have loved words all my life. And I became a friend of Dr. Robert Birchfield, who, when I was young...
He was amazing.
He was amazing, and he was the editor of the Oxford English Dictionary. Yeah. So that's how I got into words and language, and that's how we really come to be here, because we thought about a year ago, we love getting together, we're friends, we like talking about words, let's do it. And so here we are, 1 million and more downloads later, with the cream of the purple people, talking about words and language. Where did you get into etymology?
For me, etymology, the word origins, is the most thrilling part of English. There is a whole etymology team on the OED, and their amazing job is to go digging for new evidence and new stories of every single word, because even the most boring seeming everyday word has had some incredible journey. And I know journey is a word that really gets on people's nerves, including mine, but they really have been on these incredible sort of meandering routes through life.
What's your favourite journey?
Oh, gosh, there are so many of those. Well, I was just thinking yesterday about the word naughty. And people don't really use naughty these days, especially for kids.
Some of the clubs I go to, they do.
Yes, I knew that. I knew that was coming.
Knows a lot about naughty.
I knew that was coming, so to speak. Yes. So naughty was to be worth naught.
Ooh.
So it was NOUGHT. So it was applied to the poor and the needy who literally had nothing. So it was very sad. But because people tend to look down on the poor, it then became associated with kind of vice and moral wickedness, which is pretty horrible. On a happier note, buxom used to be a word used of men.
This is your night, Nigel. It really is.
So it was men who were buxom.
Be naughty, but she's buxom. Go on.
So yes, we're a Germanic language, and buxom is from the German biegsam, meaning, you'll love this, bendable, bendy, or pliable, or versatile. You know, somebody who is obedient and goes with the flow. And so men would be buxom members of a particular corporation. And then because obedience, for some strange reason, became associated with healthy milkmaids, healthy in a booby sense, busty sense, it kind of transferred to that. I mean, it's the weirdest journey, that one.
So those are a couple of your journeys. I tell you, journey may irritate you. The word that's irritating me at the moment is nuanced. Everything is now nuanced.
You like nuanced?
I find that irritating. It's just the overuse of a word.
Yeah.
That's all
that
I find irritating. You know, a survey was done recently of the most liked words in the English language. Do you have a favourite word before I tell you what came top of the survey?
Mine genuinely change every day, but it would be either thunderplump, scurryfunge, scurryfunge. You know about scurryfunging, or halcyon.
Halcyon, as in halcyon days.
Yes.
Do you love those words because of their sound or because of their
meaning? Both. And when it comes to halcyon, the story behind it, because it's the story of the kingfisher. So the halcyon was the kingfisher, and it was said to lay its eggs on the sea, and the god of the winds would calm the seas so that the chicks could hatch in serenity and peace, which is why halcyon days are the kingfisher days.
Oh,
I know, it's another sweet one.
Yeah, feel free to do the feel free, because that's, we hope, what people are doing as they listen to this, whatever they listen to.
Scurryfunging, you know what scurryfunge is. I don't think you're a scurryfunger.
Is I can't remember. That's one of the...
I've used this one so often.
No, but because, you know, you feed so many lovely words at us, unless you keep a notebook and things, it's not always... Remind me, what does scurryfunge mean?
Okay, well, apologies to anyone who reads my Twitter, because I use this at least once a week. To scurryfunge is to madly, frenetically dash around the house, shoving things into cupboards, kicking things under beds and sofas just before visitors arrive.
Yeah.
That is American dialect from 19th century. It's brilliant.
Very good. The reason there's a pause now is that I have a New Year resolution. Well, I've got two New Year resolutions. One is to be more buxom, by which I mean more pliable.
Yeah.
I'm going with the flow this year, you know, just letting things happen as they happen. But two, my New Year resolution is never to interrupt Susie. My basic rule in life is listen to your wife. And my wife said to me as I was coming off tonight, she said, why don't you make a New Year resolution, Gyles? Why don't you try listening to Susie for a change? You know, you don't listen to me at home, but we've lived together for 50 years. I'm quite used to it. I said, I'm not listening to you either. But with Susie this year, why don't you try not interrupting her? Listen to what she's got to say, think about it, and then ask her to say something more. Because we've heard your stories, Gyles. This is my wife speaking. So you will find, if you are a regular of the podcast, it'll be a bit different this year because there will be these pauses. I don't want Lawrence, our producer, cutting them out because it'll look as if I was interrupting when I wasn't. There will be a
Gyles.
pause, and when I think that
Gyles.
Susie has finished... Oh, for
Gyles.
fuck's sake, shut up. When I think she has finished, I will pause, and then when she nods, I will speak again. Did you want me to say something?
I did. Were you about to come to the top word of the survey, or have we had that? Did I
we're
miss
coming
it?
back to that.
Okay, good.
Oh, I haven't forgotten that. You were
Okay.
telling me about scurryfunge, and you finished on that, and halcyon, that's good. The survey... The second most popular word in the survey was discombobulate.
No, we have a member of the audience who hates that.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm coming to that later.
Oh, really?
There's somebody who doesn't like it.
I think people like discombobulate. What does it mean? It means to be confused.
It means to be discomforted or slightly perplexed or just, in some, you might know this, but in some fantastic airport lounge in North America, I can't remember which one it is, they have a recombobulation lounge, which is where you go to gather. I think it's brilliant.
So I think people like that because it is onomatopoeic.
Yeah.
And they like the sound of it.
Yeah.
I think with the word that came top of the list, they both like the sound of it and they like what it means. The top word most liked in this survey of people liking words in the English language was lullaby.
Mm. We love this audience.
Good.
You've got some great purple people. So our very first live podcast. And Gyles, we were talking about the word discombobulate, which frequently comes near the top of the nation's favourite words when people are polled. But there's one member of our audience, Chris Lacey from Exeter, who doesn't think it's all that. Chris, you here?
I certainly am.
Is this not your favourite?
I just wonder if you know a more amusing synonym for discombobulated.
Discombobulated.
As entertaining a word as it is.
Well, there are two B words that I really like. Well, three actually. One is betwaddled, which I think is great. So if you're a bit kind of surprised and perplexed and don't really know where you are, what you're doing, you are betwaddled. That's centuries old. To go with that is betwittered. So to betwittered is to be fluttering with excitement and just sort of overcome with emotion. And another one, which is to be totally bowled over with surprise rather than pleasure. You are blutterbunged. That's an old dialect word. So betwittered, betwaddled and blutterbunged I would offer you as my three alternatives to
Could you spell the
discombobulated.
last one?
Blutter, but it's butter with an L in it, and bunged. Blutterbunged.
Blutterbunged. I love it.
Yeah, I remember when Trump was elected, that was my only word of the day. I am completely blutterbunged.
I like words that are unique, that are remarkable. In written English, the most frequently used words are the, of, and, to, a, in, that, is, I, and it. Mm-hmm. The longest words in the language. I thought for many years that the longest word in the language was the 29-letter word flocky-naughty-nihilification.
Flocky-naughty-nihilification.
Is that the way you say it?
I might be wrong.
It's the longest non-technical word in the OED, isn't it?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
It means the estimation of something is completely worthless, including that word, I would say.
And it dates from 1741.
It's a Latin grammar, isn't it, I think?
You will know the longest word created in the 20th century that went worldwide. In fact, we can all do it as a team. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Isn't that amazing to create a word that everybody in this room knows?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Running to 34 letters, created for the movie Mary Poppins. The 45-letter word, the longest word in the OED, that's a technical word, you may know how to pronounce it. It is ultra microscopic silico volcanoconiosis. Is that about right?
That's about right, yeah.
And it runs to 45 letters. It's a lung disease.
But it's totally made up, that word.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It was made up to be the longest word.
I like curiosities like that. I collect the longest words with different letters in them. Do you know what they are? Mm-hmm. Uncopyrightable.
Oh, I see, yeah.
That's quite a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And dermatoglyphics. There's the longest English word consisting only of vowels, which is, do you know this one? Ooh. Oh, you do know it.
No, go for it. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, do.
No, go. I love your rendition.
I want you to... I'm not going to interrupt you. You interrupt me.
No, I may not have the right one.
Ooh. No. U-O-E. It's a medieval mnemonic.
No, it wasn't where I was going.
Used to recall... Oh, you thought it was the noise of ecstasy, didn't you? Yes, exactly. The noise made by the topping ram. Oh, no. It's a medieval mnemonic used to recall the musical tones required when chanting the Gloria Patri. It also takes the title as the English word with the most consecutive vowels. Can you think of words with 5 consecutive vowels? Can anybody give me one? Queuing. Brilliant. Is onomatopoeia, has that got 5 consecutive vowels?
4. Cooeying.
Cooeying. Very good.
But when are you going to say that? He was cooeying on the corner.
Do you know what word, well, you will know this, in the OED has the most definitions?
Set.
Oh, you did know. Well, you
Sorry, I'm so boring.
You've worked there for many years, so you would know, wouldn't you? How do you keep all this stuff in your head?
Well, I don't keep very much else in. And it's just the same with Countdown. People say, how do you come up with these words? But honestly, the same ones, my brain produces the same ones over and over. You just kind of see the same patterns. Plus, I have been doing it for a very, very long time. Very, very long time. By the way, Rachel Riley took for her baby one of my favourite words ever, which is a maven. Beautiful name. But also maven is like a connoisseur. So a word maven is a connoisseur or expert of words, which I think is beautiful. It's a bit like being a doctor. So all, people that you meet will say, where does this word come from? It's a bit like, can you have a look at this rash on my leg? So sometimes it's just nice to clock off. Although, I have to say, as a wordy person, it's very difficult to clock off. And eavesdropping is part and parcel of being a lexicography. I've always done this. I've always lent into conversations. And do you know the best place to listen in to conversations and to pick up new words?
Starbucks
and the loo.
Oh.
So quite often...
You're in one cubicle with your ear cocked.
Yes.
Is that what happens?
Well, pretty much. So I heard 2 teenage girls a few years ago talk about the massive coleslaws on their lips, which I thought was very sad. And in the coffee queue, this is where you pick up eggcorns. So song lyrics, famously, we've all misheard song lyrics. Mine was Lord of the Dance Settee. It was positive. That's what I used to sing at school. I was just took it for granted. He was Lord of the Dance Settee. So it's just things that we just get wrong, like going at it hammer and thongs, or this is the best one, in a Starbucks coffee queue, as it happened. Just 2 men in front of me getting really exercised about somebody. I think it was their boss. And you could see the steam coming out of their ears until one of them stamped his foot and said, "But it's his attitude. That's the whole crotch of the matter." So we now talk about the crotch of the matter in my house. So you have to be a good eavesdropper, and you pick up all sorts of gems.
Eavesdropping?
Yes.
Eaves of a house that drop? I mean,
yes.
What's the origin of eavesdropping?
It used to be the eaves drip. So it would be standing below the sort of the place where the guttering, I guess, where the water would collect and then drop in the right place. And from there, quite often you could overhear your neighbours talking. So that was the eaves drip. Stand below the eaves drip, and then eventually it changed to eavesdrop, because that made as much sense.
Well, normally what happens at this part of the programme is that, or the podcast, is that we read out letters that people have sent us, emails that they've sent us, which anybody can do by emailing us at purple@somethingelse.com. But today, because we've got hundreds of quality people who've braved pretty grim weather to come to this paradise that is the Islington Assembly Hall, we've asked them for questions and they've written them down on bits of paper, and you're picking some. Susie, what have you picked?
Yes, well, this is from Paul in Dorset, Paul Burden. Thank you for this, Paul. He says, what is your favourite translingual idiom? The French equivalent of have other fish to fry is to have other cats to whip. It's true. Autre chat à fouetter, isn't it? I think my favourite is, again, another French one where we say the writing's on the wall and they say there are spiders on the ceiling. Il y a des araignées sur le plafond. That's my favourite one. Have you got one?
Oh, I haven't got one at all. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, there's some great ones. Richard Catmer from Buckhurst Hill in Essex asks, is there a link between the rather negative words contempt and contemptuous and the rather more positive contemplation? No, is the answer.
Explain that. I mean, the origin, the source is the same, is it?
No. They just sound very similar. And they come from slightly similar roots linguistically anyway. So contempt and contemptuous come from the Latin contemnare, and we still get to contemn, don't we, with E-M-N. And that simply meant the same thing. It was to condemn someone or to look on them askance or with contempt, which is exactly what we're talking about today. Whereas contemplation has got a temple at its heart, because contemplare was to consult the birds, the auspices, and then basically settle on the right time to do something. So if the time was auspicious, you would have contemplated on this sort of bit of ground where you could take the auspices, and then you might decide on inaugurating something. And inaugurating also goes back to the auspices or the augurs, who would track the movements of the birds and then decide when something was auspicious at the right time.
This is from ancient times, when people would consult the Sphinx and would go to the oracle to discover things. And these
they'd look at the birds, they'd look at entrails of animals.
Explain about the birds. I didn't know about this.
Okay, well, birds were hugely important. So it was the movement of the birds across the skies, and it was also particular birds. So owls were seen as particularly gloomy. I mean, I guess as you might still see them today as harbingers of doom, likewise with ravens and that kind of thing. But it was primarily to do the movements across the sky.
The albatross being bad luck for sailors.
Well, yes, thanks to the Ancient Mariner. But also stars. So stars inform a lot of our words today. To consider goes back to the Greek sidera, the stars. So to consider was, again, to consult the stars in order to decide when to do something. And a disaster has got aster, the Latin star that's behind asterisk as well. And a disaster was when the stars were so badly aligned that they would bring terrible events. The stars are everywhere, and so are birds.
Stop for a moment. Can I just say, you had not had any foreknowledge of it. You have spoken about it with such eloquence and such knowledge. I think you are remarkable, Susie Dent. Just buttering her up. I don't know the origin of the expression, buttering her up. I hate to think, but I imagine Nigel from Clapham does. Is there another question?
Poor Nigel. I don't think you submitted a question yet, Nigel. We'd like one from you.
I've got the answer to your question, Nigel. 07772 416 417. Carry on.
Robin Schaefer from North London. Schaefer? Thank you. From North London. What's the origin of the phrase square meal? There's a bit of a folk etymology attached to this one, which says that plates on board a ship in the olden days would be square-shaped so that in turbulent waters the food wouldn't spill. It's actually codswallop, that, we think.
You'll explain codswallop later, won't you?
I will. Codswallop goes back to the bottles made by Hiram Cod, with a double D. Who is it? Hiram, thank you. Who made fizzy drinks, and he made those. You know those stoppers that you get on glass bottles, old-fashioned glass bottles, to keep the fizz in. He manufactured those, and he manufactured fizzy drinks. And wallop was a slang term for weak beer. And the beer manufacturers looked down on Hiram and just called his drinks Cod's Wallop. In other words, it was small beer. That's where we get it from, we think. But anyway, square meal, we think it just goes back to square, meaning just something that is kind of right and fitting. So it was always figurative rather than the square plates on board a ship.
Very good.
Some more?
One more. We've got one more before your trio.
Nigel might like this one. Peter Scarf, again from London. Where do we get the phrase, how's tricks? Well, there's a theory that it goes back to... Sorry about this, Nigel. I don't actually mean what I said at the beginning. It goes back to prostitutes. And I don't know why I said that. Turning tricks. So,
what was the phrase again?
How's tricks?
How's tricks?
That's a possible origin, Nigel, not necessarily the right one. So there we go.
Now, Susie, every week, people who are new to the podcast, every week Susie gives us a trio of words that she hopes we'll find intriguing. I always do find them intriguing. I don't always remember them, and I should really write them down. Tell me, what have you got for us this week?
Have you ever heard of a nudnik?
A nudnik?
Or a nudnik. This means, Gyles, a pestering person. Or a boring person, which you are obviously not. So the nick is the kind of suffix from beatnik and that kind of thing. And nud or nud is a bore.
A bore.
A nudnik. Stop being such a nudnik.
A nudnik. Don't be such a nudnik.
Yeah.
Good.
That's the first one. I just like this one because I think it sounds beautiful. And we were talking about euphonious, mellifluous, melodious words. Propinquity.
Propinquity. Does that mean close to?
Yes. It's to mean closeness in time or in place, or it can just mean closeness of a relationship. I think it's just quite beautiful, propinquity. And this is one for Londoners, really, because obviously it's hectic, this place, isn't it? It's beautiful but hectic. Obambulate. To obambulate is to wander aimlessly.
Obambulate.
To
Oh, I
moodle.
love that.
Moodle and mooch and dawdle and tootle and poodle and all that stuff. To obambulate.
Well, you've obambulated around the language quite deliciously. My plan this year is each week to come up with a quotation, a line that has inspired me. And because this is the beginning of the new year, and I'm determined to have a good year, not interrupting you, not name-dropping, but working hard, I've turned to the book of Proverbs. And this is my quotation of the week. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a vagabond, and want like an armed man. So thank you very much indeed for being here. But now bugger off and get back to work. That's the message.
Thank you so much for coming. Oh, we forgot the credits. Something Rhymes with Purple. Something Rhymes with Purple is a Somethin Else production produced by Lawrence Bassett with additional production from Grace Laker, Chris Skinner, Steve Ackerman and Gully.
Yeah.
So thank you to them and thank you to our wonderful audience here
You have been
at the
marvellous.
Islington
Thank
Assembly
you
Hall.
so much. Lovely. Well done, you.